Okay.
Mr. Lanre Adisa.
Okay, lovely. Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of Live and Direct. What we do basically is bring guests on board, and we ask questions to do with the business of creativity. And the intention for us is to see how we can move our industry forward, especially at a time like this. The whole world seems to agree that this is a time that needs creativity more than any other time. Matter of fact, the United Nations has a scheme that is asking for creative people around the world to send in as much content as possible because the world needs to be inspired more than any other time. We had the inaugural edition about 2 weeks ago with Mrs. Julia Okujak, and we had a very exciting time going down memory lane and coming back to where things are now. And so what we've done is to move from then and move a bit forward. And today I have with me a different generation of admin. As a matter of fact, we're up in the sky today. We're going to talk more about that as we go along. I have with me today on Live and Direct, I have Oje Ojeaga, who is the CEO of Up in the Sky. And with him also is his partner. I'm going to talk more about that going forward. The last time they had a birthday, I said that was partnership made in heaven. I have Lanre Adisa, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Up in the Sky. Gentlemen, you're welcome to Live and Direct.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So as we go along, there is a Q&A part of this webinar of Zoom. So if you have questions, you can send through Q&A, and we'll take the questions 45 minutes into this conversation. So I look forward to your questions as we go along. So once again, you're welcome to Live and Direct, and it's a big privilege for us to have you here on this platform. The question for me would be this. I like to start from there, especially because of OJ. I mean, what's the lawyer doing advertising? How did you get into advertising?
I was worried this question was going to come. Like most things in life, you stumble into something. I didn't actively decide to go into advertising. I had done law. I had just finished law school, and it wasn't really clicking for me. I was set to go to a law firm and start practicing or continue practicing because I had done some practicing in my service year. But I just found that it wasn't exciting for me. It wasn't challenging me. And I wanted to do something different. I didn't know what that was. But I'd always had an affinity for creating. And it came very effortlessly to me. But I just thought it was just fooling around, like coming up with ideas, putting words together. And someone had suggested I should apply for a job as then a creative writer. And I remember going to different ad agencies. They couldn't understand why I was coming from law because they would ask me, what previous experience do you have? I didn't have any. But then they would give me a test. And everybody says, well, you seem to test really good, but you just don't have the experience we're looking for. But then eventually I found a couple people who took a chance on me. I mean, there was Tiger at SYU.
Okay.
He was the first creative director to actually give me a chance. And then from there, I went to 141 where I met Steve. And it just kind of took off from there. So advertising has always it became a passion for me. I love the idea of tasking yourself to create within boundaries, because I believe that's what advertising is. People think you can just make anything that you want, but there's a brief, and there are often some really stringent deadlines. And it's just a mental exercise of pushing yourself to come up with excellent stuff. I think that's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do.
Interesting. I mean, we always talk about the brief as well, just like the lawyers do. I mean,
yeah.
In a way, we are the advocates for the brand, and if you put it that way.
Very true.
Idari, you studied psychology.
Yes.
So I want to assume that, you probably found yourself in the planning unit, or have you ever always thought of going into advertising, or again, you stumbled in, or it's something you were deliberate about?
Well, while I was in school, I kind of loved consumer psychology.
Okay.
But the funny thing about the way our educational system is set up was I didn't ever see that link into advertising at the time. I just loved it. And I think I did well in the course. But I actually left school planning to be a management consultant.
Okay.
That was my dream. And that was what the first job I did. I did that for about 10 months. And at the end of those 10 months, I knew I didn't want to be a management consultant. I knew I wanted to be a consultant, but then I had clarified that I was very interested in communications. And so for 6 months, I was jobless, trying to get a job in the field, just like OJ. I applied here and there, and then I got a chance to apply for a role for a PR executive actually at DDB.
Okay.
And so that's actually how I entered the industry, as a PR executive. And I really enjoyed PR at the time. But sometimes you also meet people that help clarify what you're good at. Okay. And that was my one of my bosses then. I had two bosses. The PR boss was Akonte. But then around that time, there was an MTN pitch in 2006, I believe. And the current chief transformation officer, I believe, Bayo Adekombi, was at DDB. Okay. He was the manager of research and insights. And then he drafted me into the pitch process. And so I was part of that. And just as we won the pitch, he just said to me, he actually thinks I can do more than what I'm doing in PR. And by that time, I'd begun to believe him. So that's how I, drifted from PR to strategy planning in advertising. And then I guess the agency at the time, started having the inclination to merge the strategy practice with the client service practice and make one, cohesive, like brand manager function. And so that's how I really found myself fully in advertising. So it's kind of like zigzag, but I got there eventually.
Okay, we'll talk more about that because you didn't stop there, obviously. Let's talk about that. And there's a whole lot of talk about fragmentation in our industry. New agencies popping up here and there and all that. So what led to you guys founding an agency? I mean, knowing also at that time you were not in an agency, Dari, you were the client. He was, in advertising. When you started, I mean, where did that courage come from to say, hey, let's go start an agency? I mean, knowing what I know about running an agency, I know, you must be courageous.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason why this is so interesting is because, boss, I remember coming to meet you in 2000.
You're calling me boss. Everybody was thinking I'm an old man.
I came to meet you in 2015 for pointers. But I mean, Idere was my client at the time. He was working at 9Mobile on the youth brand. And Etisalat, yes, at the time. And I remember we had a really excellent working relationship where he would send a brief and I would call him and we would pretty much hash it out before any creatives had been done. And it was working for us. So I think around 2014, 2015, in our different lives, we're in a state of flux where we're both looking for something different. I was looking for something smaller in scope, more intimate, that would give us a different focus in advertising. And I think Idere was thinking the same thing. So at that point, I think it was an evening, I had been reading, I've been doing a lot of reading just on agencies and how you could set them up. And I saw an article. I sent it to him. And the next day I had a meeting at Etisalat. And he called me over and he says, we need to talk about that article you sent, right? And after my meeting, we sat down and we talked about it. And it was like, are you thinking about starting something? I said, yeah, I am actually. I wasn't sure when. I knew it would be sometime in the future. But I was telling him about, format and the kind of form it would take. And he was like, yeah, because, he thinks it would be a really good idea. We could do it together. And up until that time, I've been thinking I had to do it by myself. But as soon as he said it, it just made sense. Like, yeah, I should talk to this guy. And I remember this was around. Sorry?
That is the instigator.
It was his idea to partner up. And I think it was the best thing that ever happened. Okay. Because like you said, as you know, you've done this before.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how difficult it would have been going through all those different phases we've gone on for the last 4 years plus by myself. There are really some moments I feel like they're going to break you. Yeah. So that's why we came together.
Okay, lovely.
The part he didn't mention was we actually have the same birthday, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And after that meeting, the way we ended that meeting was to say, you know what, this was September 2015. Let's plan on doing this agency June 6, 2016. Let's try and save up money so that we're ready by June 6, 2016. And the funny thing was that within a week or two, we had a client.
Wow.
So that kind of accelerated everything. Before the end of that next month, we had another client. So we just said to ourselves, it seems this ball is rolling faster than we can. So we just have to trigger it right now. Yeah. So just kind of like stars aligning kind of, and opportunity meeting preparation kind of thing.
Interesting. So the name. I was going to ask, what were you guys smoking when you were thinking of UpinTheSky? Were you in Cloud 9 or something? Where did that come from?
So out the gate, it was just really important that we had a name that would make everybody stop. Because I think the only thing worse than having a bad name is having a totally forgettable one. So we wanted a name that would make people say, oh, I remember those guys. What were they called? But then we also wanted something positive, right? And I remember in those early days when we were joking, Idari would always say, oh, you know what? It looks like things are looking up, right? We've managed to secure this, so things are looking up. And then I was like, we could call this UpinTheSky, right? And it was so random because we liked it. And I think once we did the logo with the paper planes, a lot of people don't understand that the reason we chose paper planes, obviously, again, because UpinTheSky, but we like the handmade aspect of it. The fact that it's craft and you have to build it with your hands. And there are two planes because we believe that whatever journey you're going on, there's you, the agency, but then you're also going on with your client. So it's both of you side by side, discovering new frontiers. And that's really it. So that was the idea for UpinTheSky.
Interesting. Lovely. I mean, there's a bully on this chat who's been quipping and doing all sorts of things called Bolaji.
Yes, I've been seeing him.
My good man.
Bolaji, that kind of language is not excused here, huh? Okay. Interesting. So
Bolaji is my forever hype man.
So beyond this birthday that you both share, any other things do you share in common, and which perhaps has enabled your partnership in one way or the other?
So I would say that in terms of temperament, Idris is really, I'm not sure how to phrase this. I would say he's the calm one. He's really chill. At times where maybe I'm more fiery and prone to blow up, but that actually helps us, right? Because by the time we get to a point where you see that Idari is upset with a client, then you probably notice that I'm the opposite and I'm chill. Apart from that contrast, we automatically see ourselves working towards the same goal.
Okay.
So many times maybe we're deliberating if we should sign on a new client, we would find that when we're comparing notes, we pretty much have made the same list of things. Oh, this is a problem, or this might be a challenge. And what that does is we're already in agreement before we start breaking things down. So that helps when you have a partner that is actively working in the same direction as you. A lot of things are shorthand from there.
Also, I think we kind of just are very passionate about creatives being respected about what they do. It's something that we align on very strongly. And it tends to drive a lot of what we tend to do or how we make decisions. I think that's a common theme. We just really, really want our craft to be respected by everyone, by those who practice it, most especially by those who engage. And so we tend to see very much eye to eye on that basis.
Lovely, interesting. Okay, I was going to ask the question as well, because I mean, when we had Mrs. Julia Okochak the other time, she was very candid about the challenges of partnership. You guys are like 3-4 years now? I'm not too sure. Is it 5 years?
4.5. 4.5 years.
4.5.
4.5. That's good. So, I mean, like they say, even in marriages, I mean, the first 5 years is very important. So if you're able to keep it going, congratulations. But she did mention things to do with some of the problems with partnership. You know, who takes the lead, who gets the visibility, who takes this or that, you know. Do you have an agreement in terms of who you bring on board? Is anybody having an unfair advantage? I mean, what has it been like for you? Yes, I know temperament-wise, I mean, you kind of complement each other, but you know, have you had any challenges you want to talk about?
So I would say straight out the gates, I remember when we were starting this and I would talk to people and tell them, oh, I'm going to start something with Idari, and everybody would tell me the same thing. Partnerships don't work, you know, that there are going to be clashes and there's going to be problems. We haven't had any of that. And I think that is as much a function of who we are as a function of the things that are important to us. I don't think you would ever see Idari or myself arguing about who should take the spotlight at any given point in time. I don't think you ever see either of us talking about whose remuneration should be more than the other person's. Every day, I think every day we wake up, we're just more concerned about staying alive and keeping the business alive. So some of the things that might be a problem in a maybe more typical partnership, we don't worry about those things. And it has helped us. It's a really simplified relationship.
Interesting.
I think as well, just the fact that we kind of treat the business as separate from the two of us, and the business is like our child, you know. So if we are both invested in this child succeeding, we kind of agree, you know, we can subordinate, you know, my needs, his needs, his vexation, my vexation, you know, because the truth is there always clashes. But if we have a bigger goal that unites the two of us, we tend to, you know, kind of put all those things aside from time to time and say, you know what, this is more important. Because of this we're trying to achieve, let's try and resolve this. We've had disagreements, not to say we don't have disagreements. And the funny thing about disagreements is sometimes I will back down and then, okay, let's him have his way. And sometimes when, you know, it seems like I've made up my mind, he will have to back down. The truth is that if you don't respect each other, you can't do that. Sometimes I'll just say, no, you're not having your way on this one. I insist. I insist on this. And the truth is that before I can say that, he knows this is important. And the same thing on his side. What takes him to say, you know what, I insist on this, I know it's important. And then I trust his judgment. And the truth is that the effects, because I always try and if I look at the effects of trusting his judgments, always spot on. And I think he may say the same.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So talking about, I mean, surviving every day and all that, I mean, if there was any time that called for surviving, no other time than now. So how have you guys been surviving, in the season of COVID-19? It's like,
so this is a very interesting question, because for Up in the Sky, it's almost felt like it's always been COVID-19. We started in 2016, and as soon as we started, the recession hit. So from that point in that year, clients slash budgets, and everywhere we would go to. In fact, I can say most of the initial pitches we got called for in our first and second year, people were inviting us because we were young, so they assumed we would be cheap.
Okay.
So we were getting lots of lowball offers. All the optimism we had when we started in, it took a couple hits. But what that did for us is that we learned very quickly how to streamline our process. We've kept our overheads low. We focus more on spending money on the things that keep the business moving. So your salaries, the expenses for the business. So that has made us very frugal. We have a small team, we're less than 10. So I would say the COVID-19 period didn't affect us as much as one would expect. We've managed to keep everything at the same level it was before the pandemic. There's a challenge of getting new businesses. I mean, but I feel like that's a challenge every agency is having.
Yeah.
We've just kept moving, one foot in front of the other.
When you have plenty, you tend to try and stop, because there's always inevitable lows, So that's just every day has been COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe the economy picks up. We'll see.
Lovely. So I won't go to DRA. It's not often that you see people leave advertising, become almighty client, and come back to advertising, but you're one of those rare people who have done that. So my question will be two parts. What was the attraction? What did you like? Was it Obasanjo or somebody then? What did you forget in Nassau Villa? So what was the attraction? To come back to advertising. Then the other part of it is now that you're back here, how do you feel when you have to deal with clients who do the things that they do to agencies, and now you're at the receiving end?
It's a very nice question. I mean, I remember when I transitioned from being in an agency to the client. I think I was lucky enough to retain my humanity, because I've seen it happen so many times. People cross over to the other side and just become something else. Because you believe you understand how agencies work, you kind of be a bit more rough with the agency than people who have never worked in an agency, which shouldn't be. You should actually be more sympathetic. But then a lot of what I gained from being on the client side was an understanding of strategy, both at the communication level and also at the marketing level. But what I also saw, I mean, for a long while before Oji and I decided to do this, was that people weren't even willing to pay for strategy on its own merit. And so strategy on itself, nobody was willing to pay for it yet. And it became clear that strategy must be linked to an output. And so it became inevitable that if I really wanted to pursue this, my desire, this, grounding my experience with strategy, I still needed to be able to find an expression that people were willing to pay for, which is basically what advertising is. People view that output as being more important than the strategy that drives it. It shouldn't be, but that's our reality. And it's the way globally. It's why you see people complaining about strategy consulting firms buying up agencies. Because by default, clients already have a level of respect for strategy consulting firms that they won't have for strategic communication firms, and so it became clear to me that if I was going to be able to pursue this desire, I needed to be able to have the expression as well, you know. And I mean, what much better than OJ, who is, well, I mean, one of the best copywriters I've ever met. Just even as a conceptual thinker, not even as a copywriter, but just his ability to think. It challenges me, and I was like, oh, we have to do this together. So what did I forget? I think that's what I forgot there. Now in relating to clients, after I came back to this side, I won't lie to you, it was a bit of a tough curve, because I was like, why are you talking to us like this? You know, you can be a client and not be rude, you know. And so I had to caution myself again and get back into the mold of, you know, someone who is set up to serve, because that's really what you are. But at the same time, there's a certain level of respect that is needed, you know. And I still feel that it's something that everybody can do better at. The agencies respecting clients, clients respecting agencies. I feel it's just the minimum, the bare minimum, because everybody on every side has the professional hallmarks of what they do, and you have to respect that. When I started off at DDB, I remember the MD then, Enyi will tell us about when he was learning the craft. His marketing director says, never touch a creative, never put a pen on a creative. That's not for you to do. You know, you can explain what you want to the agency and they will do it, but never put a pen to their work. And it's one of the things that struck me, the level of respect that is expected on both sides, you know. So I guess that's it. It's been a learning curve. Every day we learn, we get better.
So how would you guys describe your agency? And I know where I'm leading to with this. How will you describe, like you said, it's a 10-man team and all that. So what's the big dream? What's the vision? How will you define it?
Well, I mean, so we say we're a creative company. Obviously, an ad agency is probably what people know us for upfront. But our focus has really been on two things. One, design, wherein that might be anything from CI development to logos. We have some good competence there. And then the cinematic storytelling. This is something that we really wanted to use to define ourselves starting out in 2016, which was the average man on the street hates advertising. If he's watching a program, when an ad pops up, it's interrupting his program, right? And he doesn't want to see it. How can we create something that is less like the interruption and more like what he's watching? So that was when we started pushing the idea of telling stories through short film with a message. And the easiest way, the lowest hanging fruit was looking for causes. So there's always the statement of how you should use your powers for good. So creativity that didn't just exist for the sake of creativity. How could you address an issue? UpinTheSky has been very passionate about that. And storytelling is at the heart of everything we do. We try and work it into our campaigns with clients. We definitely work it into our short film. And you even tend to see that on our social media. So I would say we're really a story-driven agency that we just try and find different ways to express creativity.
Interesting. Because I was just going to talk about that, and Bolaji, your nemesis, how do you fund? So I'm taking one, because the question is relevant. How do you fund all the collaborations with Oluwajayi?
Okay.
Profit, so to be honest, it's probably why we are not living in Banana Island.
We are living in the sky, which is better.
We're living in the sky. From our very first project where we had a little profit, the first idea was, let's give this money to an orphanage, right? Because Children's Day was up, and it was just a random idea that I think it was OJ that said, apart from just giving these people money, we have our talent. Why don't we help them with our talent as well? And so we more or less stumbled into doing things like that. So it's sometimes when it seems like we have some profit, that we are able to do that. So we put a little bit of that aside and we find creative ways. And sometimes because the projects are so interesting and engaging, people chip in, to be able to do. Yeah, but they do cost something.
Okay.
They do cost something.
Lovely. So let's talk about LAIF, because LAIF is facilitating this. Triple N is facilitating. So let's talk about. You've been winning LAIF, I believe, right from when you opened your doors. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is good. So, so what's it been like for you winning your first LAIF as somebody running your own agency now, and and winning after that? You've been, I think, the top 5 or top 6 or so. I don't know what it's like the last table. So what's it like LAIF for you?
Life has always been big for us. When we started in 2016, we had only been about 10 months when we won our first LAIF award. It was a gold, I think, and a bronze. And the entire agency was mind blown, because as much as you have the validation internally that you're doing good work, there's nothing like your peers coming together and acknowledging the fact that, yes, we think you deserve this. So LAIF is, it's an important part of the experience of being in advertising, I would say. It has its challenges, but I would say it's been getting better year on year. There's still a couple of things we would like to see implemented in it, but I would say LAIF is one of the high points for any agency.
The first year, I think winning it was not even as much as the viewing of the work that won the gold. It was played, and sometimes to have your professional colleagues say this is good, the kind of response that they had got that day was very, very encouraging. I could almost say it was better food than the award itself. Just the fact that your colleagues said that this work was good, they applauded it, and the kind of responses we got afterwards was very encouraging. So LAIF has been good.
Okay. Beautiful. So let's talk a bit more about that. For OJ, you've judged LAIF and you've also won it. And I don't want to just gloss over things. What are the things we can do better? What are the expectations? What are the things we can do better?
So first of all, I would say on a technical level, when we go out of the country and we either judge other awards or we attend them, we see how they are run. LAIF tends to be a little bit, what is the word? Sometimes it can seem a little bit rushed, which I feel like, that might be a problem with so much focus or emphasis being on that one night, as opposed to being drawn out over maybe a week or a couple of days, where people can really immerse themselves and soak in the experience. Maybe even break the award ceremony down over a couple of days. And then it always helps to make the judging process, make it more open. Let's vary it a little bit on the kind of people who tend to come and contribute, who tend to oversee the work. More transparency is always a good thing. I think it just builds just believability for the event as well. So other people can point to the process and say, oh yes, that's how it's done. That's how people won. So we have the right idea on a basic level. I think it's time to start tweaking it, maybe even throw LAIF open. There's nothing that says it has to be just Nigeria. Do we want to invite the rest of West Africa into it, raise the profile of the event? I feel like these are discussions we could have and see how they play out.
Okay. Now,
I think, okay, sorry.
Please go on.
Yeah, I wanted to say that if we could also probably make it more like a celebration of ideas, the way it really should be, not so much of only advertising, because it's advertising and ideas. Yeah. And what you could see is similar to having a format that almost looks like what you see like Social Media Week, for instance, where people are submitting panels that they want to run on the issue of creativity and ideas as part of the build-up towards LAIF. I think it may help. even if it's, I mean, cost is always an issue. If it means expanding the scope to one more day or 2 more days for those kind of panels that allows, our industry celebrate ideas and advertising, and ideas can be in every field. It could be ideas from design, ideas from architecture, ideas from media, and we have that kind of a platform. It might make us a bit more relevant and plugged into the zeitgeist of the time.
Okay, lovely. I know that OJ, you and I at some point were trying to rally people together in the creative industry, the CD forum, and stuff like that. For some reason, that hit a brick wall. But what's the state of creativity in your own opinion? Where are we now? Are we making progress? I mean, that was the point I was going to make also about this COVID-19 thing. I mean, I feel like I can't really see so much of anything being done in the local market on the back of where we are in a way that really inspire people and all that. Is it that the brands are timid or the agencies are not forthcoming?
I think you also want to take in maybe the global emotional response to this is people are a little bit exhausted internally. I mean, when you look at brands, you look at the economy, the average Nigerian and brand is just trying to keep their head above water. And what that's done for all of us is that we're just automating everything. So you see campaigns come out, a lot of them don't have that punch they used to have. It's because I think people have lost, they've lost sight of the excitement that goes with advertising, that goes with creating.
Isn't that our own duty? And I'm saying this because I'm monitoring things in other markets. I'm seeing people I'm seeing commercials being repurposed, WhatsApp, from Budweiser, what's it called? Top brand comes up with, with puzzles and stuff because they know people have time on their hands and all that. So I'm wondering, I mean, if people are tired, isn't it the job of people in advertising to inspire them, to excite them? Adversity should have.
So what you find is it's going to be hard for an agency to do this without the client. And you see, that's because if you look at it from the client point of view, they're working with a budget, and their bosses have told them, these are the line items we're pushing for the year. This is what is important. The agency needs money to run these amazing campaigns, but they can only do what the client tells them to do.
There's a jam on your end. Sorry, OJ, you have two devices together. Something is jamming from your end, audio.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Is it better now?
Better, yeah.
Okay. So what you find is that a prescribed solution would be for agencies to actually take up the mantle by themselves and create some campaigns that are not necessarily tied to any brand. And that is the only way you can show the client the value of these ideas, because you create one that is impactful, that is different. They're going to see the response to it. When they see the response to it, then they're going to want to buy into it. It's kind of like what we've been doing with our social media. When we were going into the lockdown, the team sat down and they had a conversation with us. And things were looking grim. Things were looking like we weren't sure where we were going to come out from at the other end. And they made a conscious decision that we're going to post things that are going to engage with people. It's not going to be typical advertising content, but we wanted to create something that people could express themselves, they could identify with. And what that has done is that has made clients say, oh, we like what you're doing. We want to do things like that. So agencies themselves have to be bold enough to say, you know what, fine, a client might not fund this idea, but we believe that for the better good, we can create something like this. It doesn't have to be expensive. That is the beautiful thing about a creative agency. We're probably the best at coming up with ideas and executing them to scale. We can make something big that costs millions of naira, but we can also make something fantastic that costs next to nothing. So I think maybe we need to find a way where our reliance on the brands so much isn't as high as it is now. We need to convince them to see the sense in what we do.
Okay. Somebody here says, Tomiwa Olajide, due to the economic slowdown, short-term ROI has become more paramount for most brands. I mean, that may be true. But see, there's a study by IPA in the UK and even McKinsey that in the time of crisis, the brands who really support their brands with advertising, they tend to perform 8 times better than those who don't. And that's why, if you remember at the beginning of this, P&G said, hey, we're not going to stop. We're not going to cut the budget. We'll continue to advertise. I hope that gospel can reach most of our clients, because really, people are still people. I always cite the example, in the midst of war in Syria, somebody was still selling flowers, because that's who we are, we're human beings. So when you cut it, you stop the conversation. I mean, I hope we have clients who are listening, or people who can tell them, because we're not doing ourselves any good at all. A lot of people bought a lot of, they were stockpiling things at home, buying all sorts of things at the beginning of the lockdown. So, and I've been seeing their reports, most of our clients, I mean, some of them are not doing so badly, the FMCGs in particular. So I think, for me, I missed that. I mean, I was just watching something today done in South Africa with the Nelson Mandela Foundation by Metropolitan Republic and all that. Still, at a time like this, somebody needs to wake us up. Somebody needs to make us believe more in ourselves in life. And like you rightly said, maybe we'll need to come up with proactive work and find people who will be bold enough to put their money behind it.
I think so.
Lovely.
I think so.
So, for that young person watching us right now, who is just starting a career in advertising or is hoping to start one, from your experience doing these and not being as old as some of us, what would you tell that young person? I mean, is there hope for this? Is it something you want to do for the rest of your life? I mean, we're on to this. I can't think of doing anything else. Young person, would you want to still consider going to Nollywood or making music or blow, like they say, in one other way?
Making music might be better. Advertising is hard. Advertising is hard because it's for the longest time it can feel like you're jogging on the spot. You're not seeing the progress. It can seem like a thankless job sometimes, because you might be expecting a particular response from the client that you don't get. But it has been the most rewarding part of my life. Also, not financially. If you want to make money, maybe advertising is not the place to come to. But if you want to do something that can touch the world in the most unexpected way, I mean, it is one of the most amusing things I've ever heard is my creative director telling me that back in the day while he was in school, what used to inspire him were campaigns we're creating for Etisalat. And how he would see some of those designs done by the team back then in 141, and he would try and recreate them. If anybody had ever told me back then that the kid that was seeing that was going to end up being the creative director that's running the department, I wouldn't believe it. But that's what advertising has the power to do. Maybe more so when we're talking about grooming the next generation. I think this discipline can teach you how to toughen up, right? How to learn to work under pressure. And I mean proper pressure. I mean, deadlines are due in 2 hours for 5 different briefs kind of pressure. It can lead you how to face rejection in the best possible way, where you go and you present and they tell you that what you shared is not good enough, and you don't take it personally, and you just ask yourself how you can up your game. These are character building things that I believe will benefit the youth today, no matter the discourse we're talking about. So advertising is rewarding only when you commit to it. You can't half-ass it. You can't do it as something you want to get famous. This is not that. But if you want to do something for brands beyond just buying and selling, if you want to communicate a higher sense. Yeah. This is the best way to do it.
From this point of view, and having seen both sides of the coin, what would you say to that young person?
I mean, I totally agree with what OJ says. This field gives a lot of power. I say this because I see some of the work that, I mean, there was a campaign that we did for mental health. People being ready to kill themselves, and by mere virtue of what they had seen, people pick up a phone and speak to someone that talks them off the edge. I mean, I don't know what is more powerful than, you know, a commitment to a craft that can do that. And it pales beyond just making money. It's good to make money, to be honest. But then if you feel that you are looking for a contribution that in itself is rewarding, advertising is good, because you tend to create the world. I keep saying it. I mean, we joke here how when we were all growing up, when we watched films about America, everybody wanted to go to America, isn't it? Because the films we saw then were more or less adverts for the country.
Yeah.
The patriotism, the flag, you know, how they go, they never leave a man behind. But then the kind of advertising we're seeing today is somebody, you know, foot on someone's neck and they die. You know, that is an image that people are having about America today. And so you ask yourself, can we change the perception of this country that we all say is a hellhole by what we create? Which other field allows you to do that? It is advertising. Filmmaking, which is linked to advertising. Storytelling, which is linked to advertising. Visual creation, which is linked to advertising. So if you want to be able to make, you know, tectonic shifts about how people view things, I think advertising is still a very great place to be. Like OJ mentioned, the shared discipline, the shared character building of handling rejection. I don't think there's anything that, you know, compares to it in this field. You know, I would still strongly recommend people to consider this field. It's funny because sometimes I get to talk to people in school. Many people don't even know that an industry called advertising exists. They are still being primed for jobs called lawyer, jobs called engineer, jobs called banker, you know, jobs called marketer, which is actually sales, you know, but people don't know that there are fields like this in what we do. And so there must probably be some greater outreach from us, letting people know that.
Maybe we need to advertise ourselves. Not in that sense,
yes.
what we do and all.
Yeah. Let people know that this exists and this is what this world looks like.
Thank you very much. Let me take some questions from our audience.
Okay.
So there's one here from our usual suspect. It says, OJ, was Idari a good client in the Tisala days?
Idari is a very good client. I mean, he was a very good client. He was relatable. And more importantly, this is something that I know people will probably gloss over, but he was polite. He would disagree politely. He would emphasize things politely, and he would share ideas politely. And if you've ever worked with a creative, you know, we're the most emotional sort, right? We laugh at our art directors when we tell them to change something and then they're sulking for hours. But that's because you pour yourself into everything you create. Idari was one of the few people that could empathize. He could see that this thing had taken a lot of time, a lot of work. And for that reason, anytime, because it's a loop, anytime something would come and it was a youth brand or a youth product, you would find that the team, I worked with them, would just invest themselves more in it because they know that the person that is going to review it is going to give them honest feedback and make the work better. I think that's the kind of client everybody wants to have.
So you're a lucky guy then that you can have a client's perspective of your work before it goes to the client.
I am.
Interesting. So I'm going to jump and come back to Bolaji's questions. Chizoba on UK is asking, how do you both deal with managing the expectations of your clients?
Yeah.
How do we manage? The expectations of our clients are, like you would expect, they're always huge. Everybody wants you to be fast because that has been our promise. We said we do work simpler, better, and faster.
Yeah.
And faster, yeah. And we try to do that, but sometimes things are sacrificed in the meantime. And before you know it, we kind of help clients see that sometimes giving the agency a little more time is best because you get better output. It's a tug and it's a push and pull between that. Also, when it comes to issues about what it costs to do things, to do this and be alive actually requires money. And sometimes agencies and clients have that tussle. Maybe they don't want to pay what will be required to do the job very well, and also for the agency to remain alive while doing it. And so it's a push and pull. Sometimes you take the first hit on the first one so that the clients can trust what you say. And I tend to see that many people, once they give you the benefits of doubt the first time, maybe you take the hit the first one, sometimes they trust. Sometimes you do find a few people who are, from another planet, and they do not take learning from what we all just saw, that this thing just behaved like this because of this. It's a push and pull. I don't think we can ever say that we fully mastered the expectation.
We're all in the same boat, don't worry. So there's a question here for OJ. I hope you're prepared for this. So it says, OJ, you had a rosy job at Extreme Ideas. Why did you leave?
Okay.
This person must be a rosy job.
Rosie, okay. I was at a particular point in my life where I was steadily being overwhelmed. If you know Steve Babaiko, you know that eventually Steve is going to conquer the universe, because that is the kind of drive he has. Steve constantly pushes for more, and I believe that has been a large element in the success he has had. He has done an amazing thing in such a short period of time. He's built a group, not a company. But at that point, I think I just had my second kid, and I was starting to get the feeling like I wanted to slow down a little bit. And also I was getting all these crazy ideas in my head about what I could do with movies and short film and how I could incorporate that in advertising. And it just seemed a lot easier to build that separately as opposed to trying to work it into a rapidly accelerating system. And I think it's something that sometimes everybody comes to. You want to branch off, you want to try something else. And it's been harder, starting out anything, going out on your own. It has been definitely more difficult than just waking up and getting a salary. I miss just getting a salary, that was great. But this has been, I wouldn't trade this experience for the world. Every time I would make this, because I think I find myself actually doing what I want to do.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. Idiare, there's a question for you from Eyo. Says, Idiare, knowing your grounding on agency side and client side, how do you find and retain staff, especially as most of your staff will probably be younger than both of you? How has this affected your business planning?
That's a good question.
That's a very good question, because I think OJ asked me this same question like 2 days ago.
Okay.
And I said to him that the basic level is the reason why we've kept the team small is so to a certain extent we can pay what we feel is a good wage. That's one. But more importantly, everybody outgrows their salary, to be honest. Everybody. No matter what you earn, if you start earning 50 million today, just give it 3 weeks, your needs and desires will catch up with that. So what has really helped us was because the agency has always tried for a bigger purpose than money. And that always tends to give people a sense of mission. I feel that if if people feel they are doing worthwhile work, apart from just showing up at work and getting money, if they feel that they are doing something that is more important than just money, and they actually see also the leadership is as invested in those missions, I think it really helps. So we tend to show up, with everybody like it's a mission that we're doing, and it tends to help. People tend to have that mission mindedness, and it tends to help. People just feel like this is beyond just, yes, we're trying to make money, we're trying to live from day to day, but we're striving for something bigger.
Interesting.
Keeps people engaged.
Lovely. So, there are more questions, but I don't think we have enough time for them. We have 5 minutes to wrap this up. So this is a home run for us. I'd just like to have a take from both of you. What's the one thing, I can sense your passion in terms of how committed you are to this industry and the craft of it all. And that gives me a lot of joy and hope that it's not just something limited to a generation and you're not sure about anybody continuing with that. And I think it's the best time to be in our business in terms of all the platforms that are available out there. But just one question for me. What's the one thing you would like to change about our industry, going forward? For you, OJ, for you, Idiare.
So I'm just going to speak like a creative here and say I just hope we get to take more risks as an industry, more risks in what we propose to clients, more risks in how we value ourselves. I feel like there might have been some compromises done over time that has made client not see the value so much in an agency, which is why you can, you go for a pitch, you show work and nobody gets selected, but the client gets to use your work. I think as an industry, we should be bolder and just strive to do more, to see ourselves like the professionals we are. As somebody that's coming from law, the amount of self-confidence lawyers have in themselves and the Nigerian Bar Association is what we should have in ourselves as practitioners. So I would say that is one thing we definitely need more of. Just raise the value of the industry and the kind of work we put out. We already have so many people.
On the back of that, sorry to butt in.
Yes.
I like that angle that you brought to it. Would you be willing at any point in time to lend a hand in working with people to earn respect? To work to ensure that we earn respect for what we do. I'm sure there will be other things we need to do beyond just talking about it. From the legal point of view, and other things I need to do. Yeah.
Absolutely, anytime.
So Idiare, your take.
Okay. Everything OJ says is spot on. I would just, really love to see our industry have, a stronger impact on our society. And I say that because I feel that there's a lot that our industry has to offer in crafting the perception of our people and creating a new perception for our people. I feel that it's strange that there is no agency that has a blockbuster film on Netflix. Because in this pandemic, everybody, who is interested in content one way or the other has been on those kind of platforms looking for what is interesting. And I don't feel that there's anybody or any other professional, due respect to Nollywood, that understands how it is to create a perception like the advertising people. We can actually create the most seamless perceptions ever because of our training, in terms of our understanding, our discipline. I feel that we need to be more adventurous in those kind of long form content areas. I think it's something that we are leaving on the table that, we should be at the cutting edge of such.
I agree with you, absolutely. And I wish we could just continue that conversation, but it's something that I'm very passionate about. As a matter of fact, I'm sure we have a production company.
In the works.
Working in that direction of content, beyond just doing advertising. And I'm sure for all that you guys have been doing, please keep it up. We need more of that. That's the essence of this conversation. I'm sorry I can't take any more questions, but it's been a very wonderful time on Live and Direct, and I look forward to the next one. And we will know eventually what LAIF Awards will be this year, whether we will do it all online and free or not. I mean, that is for the board. I mean, I look forward to seeing you guys. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, our audience. It's been wonderful. I look forward to the next 2 weeks when I will bring in another set of guests or guests, as the case may be. Enjoy.
All right. Take care.